In a small town where everyone knew each other, Sarah lived with her parents in a cozy house with a white picket fence. But behind closed doors, their home was anything but peaceful. Sarah's father, Mr. Johnson, had a short temper that flared up like a wildfire, especially towards her mother, Mrs. Johnson. Every night, Sarah would hide in her room, listening to the shouts and screams echoing through the walls. She would clutch her teddy bear tightly, wishing for the noise to stop. But it never did. It seemed like her father's anger was as constant as the ticking of the clock. As Sarah grew older, she understood that her father's behavior wasn't normal. He would come home from work, slamming doors and yelling at her mother for no reason. Sarah tried to intervene, but her father's rage was like a storm that couldn't be calmed. One particularly stormy night, things took a turn for the worse. Sarah's father came home drunk, his words slurred and his fists clenched. He started yelling at her mother, accusing her of things she hadn't done. Sarah couldn't take it anymore. In a moment of desperation, Sarah stepped between her parents, trying to protect her mother from the onslaught of her father's rage. But he pushed her aside with a force that sent her crashing to the ground. In that split second, something inside Sarah snapped. With tears streaming down her face and her heart pounding in her chest, Sarah picked up a nearby object and swung it at her father in a blind fury. The sound of impact filled the room, followed by a deafening silence. Sarah's father lay on the ground, unmoving. In the stillness that followed, Sarah's mind raced with a whirlwind of emotions. Guilt, fear, and disbelief washed over her in waves. She had never meant for things to escalate this far, but now there was no turning back. As Sarah stood over her father's lifeless body, she knew that her life would never be the same again. She had broken the cycle of abuse, but at a tremendous cost. The weight of her actions hung heavy on her shoulders, threatening to crush her spirit. In the days that followed, Sarah struggled to come to terms with what she had done. She couldn't shake the feeling that she had failed her family, that she had become just like her father. But deep down, she knew that she had done what she had to do to protect her mother. With the help of a kind neighbor who had heard the commotion that night, Sarah and her mother were able to seek refuge in a shelter for victims of domestic violence. There, surrounded by people who understood their pain, they began the long journey towards healing. Sarah learned that breaking the cycle of abuse wasn't easy, but it was possible. It meant standing up to the ones we love, even when it's hard. It meant seeking help and support from others. And most importantly, it meant finding the courage to forgive ourselves for the mistakes we've made along the way. As Sarah looked towards the future, she knew that she had a long road ahead of her. But with her mother by her side and a newfound sense of strength within her, she was ready to face whatever challenges came her way. And as she walked away from the wreckage of her past, she knew that she was breaking free from the chains that had bound her